So, as I said in my introduction to the Spheres of Influence video that I put out last week, I expected to get a few things wrong and I asked people to send in whatever corrections that they had. Fortunately, I made less major mistakes than I had expected, and I want to thank everyone for mostly being constructive and positive when providing that feedback. And as a result of all that, what I wanted to do here was to simply create a video which compiled a list of all those errors that I made so that people can really make sure that they know exactly what's going on, and also just to be honest about the mistakes that I make, because no one's going to be perfect when they're trying to cover the entirety of EVE Online. For the roughly 18% of my audience which doesn't have adblock installed, don't worry, this video isn't monetized because I'm not the kind of person who wants to make money from talking about my mistakes. But if this is something that you appreciate, feel free to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, so let's start things off with something that I don't consider to be a mistake, but a more general criticism on the fact that I portrayed the map at a coalition level rather than a block level, which seemed to be mostly focused around Dead Coalition being pets of the Imperium, although Legacy was also put into that box. As a result of that, let's quickly zoom out and take a look at how things work from that standpoint. If another large-scale war were to break out today, I'd expect the sides to consist of the Imperium and Legacy on one side, facing off against PanFam and Winter on the other. Dead Coalition are, as I kind of mentioned in the video, a little more of a wild card, given that they've flipped allegiances on a block level in the past, but are certainly more closely aligned with the Imperium than ever following their in-tandem invasion of Tenor earlier this year. The ex-HRE territories have effectively become a non-factor here, as far as I'm aware, No Value, Circle of Hell and Hard Knocks generally lack the close connections with PanFam that Skill Yourself had. This current two-power system is one I think is best encapsulated by the fight in SAI TAC T9, in which we saw PanFam work with Winter to try and kill a legacy Fortizar which had been placed in Winterco space, only for it to be defended by both Legacy and the Imperium, with GO2G staying outside of the battle. I chose to stick to covering everything here at a coalition level simply because it's more interesting to do so, and due to the fact that it's more congruent with the day-to-day reality that these coalitions experience, as they're not involved in a major war against one another, which means that on a day-to-day level these strategic allies will still shoot at one another, just under the confines of a nip. So with all that said, let's get right onto the corrections. And first up in tribute, we have a fairly minor correction regarding my speculation on Rote Capel and the Unspoken Alliance working together. This has turned out to be right on the money, and Just the Game and their other allies in the Cockroach Coalition are active in the area, trying to make the region their new home. Next we have the region of Vale of the Silent, which is a lot less solidly under PanFam control than I had originally thought, with alliances such as Your Dunked, Forsaken Empire, and the Reverberation Project taking systems in the part of the region that connects to Tribute. Given that PanFam is currently in the middle of logistically shuffling their space around in order to place alliances where they need to be for their new system, it's unknown whether they intend to return their attention to this region or not, so I'll try and keep you posted about any developments here. Moving over to Ethereum Reach, we have what was absolutely my biggest mistake when talking about specific coalitions, as I'd assumed that Slice and Triumvirate were part of their own independent group. This is in fact not the case, as they're a part of the PanFam coalition. In addition to that, the smaller alliances that were in the region are smaller alliances that actually fall under that banner, making Ethereum Reach a region fully under PanFam or PanFam aligned control. Now, in the Spire, my assessment of the situation and its history was mostly correct, but with the exception of the Alliance No Visual, who I incorrectly labelled as part of the PanFam aligned forces occupying the region. That was not correct, and they worked with the opposing coalition I mentioned as having been in conflict with PanFam in this region, now standing as the last holdouts in the area. Just to the south of that region we have Cache, which I mentioned is a region under the control of Winter Coalition, which isn't exactly the case. In fact, it's home to a small battle between that coalition and the Alliance Dragon Empire, both of whom rushed in following the retreat of Circle of Hell from that area to concentrate on their core territory in Outer Passage. Currently, it looks as though Dragon Empire is losing this war, given that their Sov has been bleeding away over the past few days, and the destruction of one of their Fortizars in the theatre just yesterday. Skipping all the way along to Scalding Pass, we have a slight correction in exactly how Legacy forces are entering that theatre, with me assuming that they'd entered via Curse and were continuing to stage out of that region. In fact, the Legacy members involved in this attack were able to forge their own beachhead and stock their own citadels in the region itself to attack it from within. Then finally we get to Quirius, where I incorrectly labelled every non-Goonswarm or initiative holder in the region as a part of the Quirius Fight Club. That turned out to be a grave oversight on my part given the presence of Nullsec Naya Shalopen, who took the space that they own from an attempted revival of the Space Monkeys Alliance, which collapsed in the wake of World War B. Currently, they appear to be holding onto their space and fighting various Imperium and QFC members who are trying to push them out of the region. And that effectively finishes the list of corrections that I've been made aware of so far. And I'd just like to take a moment to give another round of thanks to everyone who reached out to me to give me more information that I had missed in my initial video. It is kind of hard to track the relationships between alliances without the ability to use EveSkunk to see everyone's standings like we used to have access to back in 2017. But with that said, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to fly smart.